Hello and welcome to Larry Has Opinions. I've had another epiphany this morning and I thought of this idea for a video that no one has ever done before in the history of booktube, and that's reviewing one-star reviews of some of my favorite books. So let's jump straight in. Okay, I'm gonna start from a book that I really loved, and that's Call Me By Your Name by Aciman. I'm gonna warn you in advance, this video will have a lot of patronizing Larry in it, so let's just get started. I can see why everyone loved this book and I can't believe blah blah blah, couldn't finish. Also, the author is straight. He isn't saving the gays or anything. So if the author is straight, he cannot write about a gay love story or whatever. Okay, let's carry on. Another one. Edited to add blah blah blah. Nope. Is a straight man. Mother. Breathe. Okay. A narcissistic portrait of the author as a young boy. In this book, the only thing the author successfully portrays is his vanity. So on one hand, we've got someone saying he's straight, he shouldn't be writing about this, 1 star. On the other hand, we've got someone say, oh, this is the author portraying himself, 1 star. It clearly couldn't be since the author is straight. Okay. DNF at 25%. You're probably going to hate me for this, but oof, I'm so uncomfortable right now. I don't even want to talk about it. Well, the fact that a book makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it's a bad book. It probably means it's doing something right if it's making you feel something and have a strong reaction. So, hard pass. Another one. To say the least, I believe this is one of the lowest ratings I've ever given to a YA novel. A YA novel? No. Okay, I'm going to move on to another one of my favorite books, and that's The Pillars of the Earth by Follett. So the first one is actually pretty funny, but so 1 star. I read this book because my friend Zach, poor Zach, made me. Zach did not actually enjoy nor endorse this book. He just needed someone to commiserate with. Fair enough. You should read this if you have some friends that are sort of mean and funny and will read it too. Okay. Then you can go have sushi and talk about how horrible the sex scenes were. Fair enough. There are probably easier ways to initiate good conversation than plowing through 900 or so pages, blah blah blah. Also, people you know from work, family, school, we have read this book and loved it. So it's useful to read it before they lend it to you. I want to know your opinion. Okay, fair enough. The best thing you can say about this book is that it's difficult to read on the bus. Agreed. Okay, honestly, I didn't finish it, but my God, I could not make myself. Bit of drama. The main storylines were fairly interesting, okay, but they just dragged on and on and on. It just got way too soap opera for me. That's a fair criticism to some extent. I think one of the reasons why I really like it is that it's really entertaining, really engrossing. You really want to know what happens. Build the effing cathedral already, I yelled as I threw the book to the wall. Yeah, it's easy. Just go build a cathedral. I mean, what's the big deal, right? We all do build cathedrals every day. Yeah. I know I'm going to be in the minority here, but this is truly one of the worst books I've ever read. So dramatic. I came so close to throwing the book across the room on several occasions. Another book thrower here. They seem to be fairly common. Ended up blah, 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 whatever. As an adult, I was shocked at the language and violence in this book. And I find it totally inappropriate for a child. Yeah, I would agree that I wouldn't recommend this to a child. Fair enough. That doesn't make it a 1-star book. Also, I think it's completely fair enough that someone would not want to read about violent stories or books that have a lot of sex or sexual assault or a lot of themes that might not be for everyone. That doesn't make the books bad books. It just makes you someone who doesn't want to read that stuff, and that's okay. But it's really very straightforward to find out that this is one of those books. This is not a happy, chappy book where everyone is doing amazing things and everything goes hunky-dory all the time and everyone's happy. Really not. And it's really not difficult to find out. So I would question, why would you read it in the first place? But anyway, let's carry on. Towards the end of this 1,000-page book, I noticed the ad for the equally nondescript titled sequel released 17 years after Pillars. This raises a lot of questions. What kind of author leaves his fans hanging for 17 years? Let's not talk about it, okay? Can there possibly be anything left unsaid after 1,000 pages? Is this why Follett looks so smug on the back cover with his black turtleneck? Maybe in the sequel he'll explain blah, 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 whatever. The thing is, the sequel is not a sequel in the sense that it carries on with the same story. Not at all. It's just part of the same series because it's set in the same village, but it's set in the same village 200 years later. So there's some bits of the story that very loosely name one of the characters of the first book. It has nothing to do with the first book. So this review on the ground that it gave it 1 star because of the 17-year-old wait, it's just ridiculous. Reading this book was incredibly frustrating. First of all, it's clear that Follett researched the Middle Ages. Is that a problem? I'm not sure I understand. How do I know? Because he included every single fact or details he ever learned about it in this book, whether it was interesting or integral to the plot or not. He droned on and on with meaningless details about life in the Middle Ages. Yes, and that's part of the beauty of this book, is that you feel really immersed in the day-to-day lives of the people living in that era. And okay, it's fair enough you didn't find it interesting, but again, it's not difficult to find out that this is that sort of book. A 1,000-page historical fiction book is going to be pretty heavy on the history, very likely. And this is it. So giving it 1 star because of that seems unfair. The first 200 pages were terribly boring, blah, blah, blah. The characters were not particularly compelling, but they weren't hollow either. They were just bland, and I just was not invested in any of them. Although at some points I would keep reading because I wanted to know what will happen next to this character or that. So which is it? Were you invested in the characters or not? If you were not invested in the characters, why did you want to know what happened next? Anyway, another 1 star. This must be one of the funniest 1-star reviews I've ever seen. I found out that this was an opera book. No wonder I think it's crap. You want taste and style reviews from somebody who commissioned oil paintings of her dogs and hung them on the walls of her mansions? 1 star. Okay, fair enough. So now let's move on to my latest 5-star, actually, which is Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller. The setting for this story was attractive to me, and there is where any appeal for this book ended. If there was a point to this novel, it was lost on me, and I consider myself fairly adept at figuring out the purpose of a novel, but not so this time. A novel does not have to have a purpose or a point. A novel is a story. It's up to you what you take out of the novel. Some novels, I agree, might have a more in-your-face narrative with a sort of agenda that is not hidden at all. Others, they just want to be stories, and it's up to you to figure out what you want to take away from the novel. It does not have to have a point or a purpose for it to be a good book. So, didn't finish this, made it to about halfway through and was just so bored and depressed by it. It's a pretty depressing book. It's pretty easy to find out that that's the case. In some ways, it was an interesting story and concept. The juxtaposition of the poverty in the cottage compared to the neighbors using Alexa. I kept forgetting what time period this was set in. A book that makes you forget what period it's set in is pretty amazing, in my opinion. Just found this overall very dull, which, fair enough. Some people will find it disappointing. I didn't want to waste my time on it any longer. However, I will look up the ending just out of interest. 1 star. People being so consistent in their thoughts. 1.5 stars. What the f*** was that? I would throw it across the room if I have a physical book. Never have I had such guttural hatred towards a book. That seems a bit harsh. Also, again, as I said earlier, any book that makes you have that sort of really strong reaction must be doing something right. I can see some of this. I can see why, because there are choices that the characters make, that you really want to go, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? But that's exactly what's intended by the author. Is clearly something that she wanted to portray, and the fact that the character does something stupid does not make it a bad book just because you don't agree with the actions of the character. So, finally gave up at page 184. Boring, unbelievable, utterly depressing. Couldn't take it anymore. I read for fun. Fair enough. And now let's move on to one of my favorite sci-fi series, and that's the Saga of the Exile by Julian May. So this is a quote from the book. It's quite funny, actually. The hair hung nearly to her waist, and so, if Richard's eyes didn't deceive him, did her incredibly pendulous breasts beneath the gossamer fabric. Okay. It's a peculiar phrase, so I can see why some readers might find it a bit off-putting. So let's move on. My 1 star is given for the quality of writing, I guess, and for a new idea. I couldn't give any more stars because the whole thing was very unbelievable, and I couldn't get into the story because I couldn't get past how ridiculous it was. Sorry. Yeah, fantasy and science fiction quite often tend to be a bit unbelievable. I mean, would you rate The Lord of the Rings 1 star because it was just a bit far-fetched? I suppose. Anyway, my parents gave me this book for Christmas, and I'm not sure I actually finished it. 1 star. Okay, judging from the picture, it's been several years. You think you got it for Christmas. You're not sure if you've even finished it. God knows how many years ago. 1 star. Okay, seems very fair. When I read this many years ago, I would have given it 4 stars, but I have no memory of the characters, just the geography, which was compelling. I don't think I need to add anything to this. And then last, I think the best review for this one. These books are absolutely terrible, and I'm loving every minute of them. And just to finish this off, I've only got one more review for one of my favorite thrillers, and that's the Da Vinci Code. And that's from my fellow booktuber, Sean the Book Maniac. An all-time low in a lifetime of reading. Quite simply, the worst book I've ever read. Okay, I hope you guys like this video. Please give me a thumbs up. Join our Discord if you disagree with any of my takes on this or anything else, and I'll see you the next time.